All righty. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. You.
Good.
First, thank you all for joining us. I'll get us started here so we can get to flowing through. But if we could start, since it's only a few of us, if everyone could start with a word to describe how they're feeling today and a color to describe how they're feeling today.
I'm feeling optimistic, actually, and maybe green.
I am feeling grateful. It is my birthday today, so I'm super grateful for another year around the sun. And I guess my color will be blue.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I am feeling peaceful. And I suppose my color would be yellow.
All right, today I'm feeling abundant, and I would say my color is purple. All right, so to introduce today's discussion to our viewers, basically Kheprw has been putting on a variety of conversations via Zoom, and we've been calling them our online town hall series. And this one is specifically about adapting to the pandemic. And we'll be doing this every 2 weeks to highlight stories of resilience and to share how people are addressing the challenges and building resources and opportunities and trying to stay positive fundamentally. Today's topic is short-term business survival. And we have some great panelists. Once again, thank you all for joining us. And I guess just so I can set how this will flow, each of you will have about 10 to 15 minutes to speak about who you are and your particular points that you like. And I have some questions I can ask to help gauge you throughout that 10 to 15 minute period. And then we'll do questions and answering on the end. I'll try to leave like 20, 30 minutes for that from the viewers. And then I'll speak a little bit before that about some of what Kheprw has going on as well. Sound like a plan?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So first we'll start with Chef Oya Woodruff. And if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and Chef Oya's The Trap.
I am Chef Oya. The Trap is a walk-up seafood establishment here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We are located at 33. I always get that confused with my home address because they are pretty much the same. But anyway, 3355 North Keystone Avenue. We're right on the southeast corner of Keystone Avenue and 34th Streets. We just celebrated in January our 3rd year of being in operation.
Congratulations.
Thank you. In the hood, selling fresh seafood to the community. One of our mainstays, and one of the reasons why I'm in business first and foremost is because of the love for the community. And I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. And because I'm a huge proponent for food access. So we feed folks almost every day, even though it's quiet and not a whole lot of people know. And yeah, it's been really interesting trying to adapt to the current pandemic with regard to we are a walk-up food establishment, so we've always done carry out service. Like, that's the only thing that we do. So the mandate coming down saying that we had to not do any dine-in service, it was fine. However, I knew that a lot of other restaurants were also going to the same model that I've been working out for 3 years. So I kind of switched up a little bit and did something different.
Can you talk? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't
I was
hear
just gonna say, can you talk about some of the things you did differently to, adapt to what took place?
So first and foremost, because I knew that we wouldn't be able to necessarily have the same access, because the food pipeline has changed a little bit because of all of the imports shutting down, and there aren't as many flights going out and all of that stuff. So I knew that we were going to have to change the menu and take certain things off of the menu in the first place. However, I did have something that was kind of in my pocket, already almost ready to go. There was another service that I started the week that the pandemic came out, or the week that the mandate came down. It's called Trap at Home. And what Trap at Home basically is us. We package. We do most of it is vacuum packaged, and the other foods that are not safe to vacuum package, we just seal them. We season them up, get everything ready to go, and we sell them in a package cold, so that you can go home and make it yourself. So it's about the same price point. However, you have the flexibility of making it to your standards while you're at home, or freezing it for later. So that has also just really kind of opened up a couple of other doors for me as well, because now that I've started that, I'm also partnering with a couple of different places, and it's kind of still low key right here in the city, to do retail. So not only will I be able to still do Trap at Home out of the trap space, but we're going to be able to sell them to a couple of small grocery and retailers here in the city, so that it will at least keep me and 2 of my employees working.
Right. So I have another question for you. Given that more people moved to the model you had been using for the previous 3 years, have you seen more competition, or has it not negatively impacted you, given that you were already providing your services that way?
I think differently about the word competition in the first place. As far as like direct competition, as far as like seafood places here in the city that do something similar, like I was really the first one. So everything else, I don't necessarily consider anybody real competition. And that's not me being like, ooh, I'm biggest and the baddest. It's just me understanding like what my position is here in starting something. You know what I mean? So I don't think it definitely hasn't negatively impacted business in a way that more people are going to other places as opposed to coming here. I almost kind of did it also as to kind of set myself apart, because everybody else was ready to do takeout anyway. And so what this also did was allow me to still serve about the same amount of people. But I wanted to make sure that we got our contact with people as streamlined as possible. So what I did was we opened up the door to do pre-orders online only. So we did pre-orders from Tuesday to Thursday, and this is the model that we're going to go from here forward, but we do pre-orders from Tuesday until Thursday, and then on Friday is the only day that people actually come and pick up. So we have the regular trap menu with the seafood and everything, and then every week I will introduce a different other menu. So not only is it allowing people to still get their trap fix and then in a different way, but it also too has allowed me to kind of branch out a little bit and do something different than seafood. Last week I did, pre-seasoned packaged chicken wings and other sides. And those, I sold 200 pounds of chicken wings and really wasn't expecting to be able to pivot in that way. And so that's really cool. Next week I'll do something else. I've been closed this week to, do some, regular maintenance and stuff. And I was supposed to be on vacation anyway because it's my birthday. But next week we'll be able to open the pre-orders back up with the seafood, the chicken wings, and maybe something else added to the menu. So this way I don't necessarily have to take, or I don't have to take cards through, I don't have to get anybody's cards. I don't have to take anyone's cash. So we're still practicing social distancing in a way that's easy for everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got a few more questions for you. So one is, are there any particular resources that you have found extremely useful in this time period?
I honestly just started the process of looking into resources, like literally just this morning, simply because we were able to do about the same amount of volume that we have been doing. Mm-hmm. Because the business model has slightly shifted, I did have to kind of put two of my employees kind of on hold for right now, and I'm still able to kind of pay them a little bit of their wages, but we just don't need them full time because we can run the operation with just me and my sous chef and my assistant, so we can get it done that way. And so the auxiliary help is not necessarily needed, and they were just part-time people, anyway, not necessarily needing the hours and all of that. So we had to kind of shrink the team a little bit, but we're still doing about the same amount of volume. So the profit margin is still about the same. So fortunately, and I'm so grateful for this, because my model was already takeout and because we really have a really wonderful and supportive customer base, we haven't really had to, change much. Now, granted, it's still a little bit tough because people aren't shopping as much, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't, when we were open last week, there wasn't very much difference than the week before or the week before that with regard to the profit margin and what we were able to bring in. So because of that, I didn't necessarily think that I needed to look into the exact instant resources, just because we were still okay. And I'm not going to, I will look into the resources to see exactly what I'd be able to do, and maybe that will help supplement, the two people that I did kind of have to put on hold. But I didn't want to necessarily take away from any businesses like a 50 top or 100 top, sit down restaurant where most of their business comes from, dine-in service. I didn't have to worry about that. Mine is still the same. So I'm grateful to be able to have been able to put myself in a position that the pandemic didn't necessarily affect me completely and totally.
Yeah, that's beautiful that wasn't the case. When the pandemic first kind of, I guess, hit its first peak, because we probably still haven't seen the end of it, but as an entrepreneur, what went through your mind? Was it opportunity? Was it panic? Was it concern? Was it a mix of feelings? Just, in terms of, you had to generalize some of the thought processes you went through as an entrepreneur, and how you felt that the pandemic would impact your business model at its stage right now.
It was, I think, a little bit of all of those words that you just described. At first I was like, oh, we take out anyway, it's cool, I don't have to worry about it. And then I said, well, I do have to worry about it, because this is going to affect everybody else's income, and when everybody else's expendable income or eating out income is affected, then that's going to affect me as well. You know what I mean? Because eating out is a luxury for most people, to be honest. So I did think of all of that. I thought about, my household. I'm a single mom, you know what I mean? I thought about my mother's household. I care for my mother who is ailing, you know what I mean? So I thought about all of that. I thought about my employees and their children and their families, and wondering how exactly would we be able to adjust things. But then I also thought, you know what? You've been able to build this on this model, and it's been okay. And unless they put down a mandate that says all restaurants have to close, period, point blank, then I'm not going to be completely and fully affected. You know what I mean? So gratefully, I'm still able to work, and we're still considered essential.
Well, thank you for sharing. I'm glad that your model is still able to keep, providing that great food, as well as continuing your model and setting an example for others during this time period.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here and asking for my input.
Absolutely. All right, so let's jump to Miss Anita Williams with the Indy Black Chamber. And if you can start with who you are and a little bit about the Indy Black Chamber.
All right, my name is Anita Williams with the Indy Black Chamber. We've been around since 2015, trying to help small business, focusing on Black business, just stay together, understanding what resources are out there, helping them in training, certification, going after contracts, walking them through how to get through contracts, understanding some of the needs of Black business. Not only do I work with the chamber, but I also have a security company. So I understand some of the hardships that small businesses go through. We look at training, we bring contractors in, especially construction, because that's big here in Indianapolis. And oftentimes minority businesses don't try to pursue construction contracts, state contracts, or even city contracts. So we're here as a support system to make sure that the pie is shared with everyone.
Got you. So are there any resources that you all have came across that you are finding extremely useful, or that you're trying to encourage people to find out about?
What we're telling everyone is to apply for all of the loans and the grants that are out there. And Chef, I know you said you weren't affected, not immediately. As Black businesses, we're kind of generous. You don't want to take money that you don't think you need yet. Well, the problem is it may be first come, first serve.
Right.
And by the time you find out you really need these funds, they may be gone.
Right.
So we encourage everyone to go after the money, because this is going to be a trickle down. And we want our businesses to be ready for this trickle down that sometimes shuts Black people out. We know for the majority business community, when they get a cold, we get pneumonia. Tavis Smiley has said that for years. It's always hardest on us. So we encourage, and we're calling all of our members and saying, go after the grant they came out with LISC and Verizon. Go to Indy Chamber's hub of resources and loans. Apply for those loans now. Bankable is supposed to have a loan. I won't talk about that right now, but some resources that we know about, we're calling our members and say, apply for it now, because it's going to be important. And even the SBA disaster loan, as we're not feeling the effects, some of them aren't feeling the effects yet, still apply for those loans, because they're going to be important to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What other resources do you think are needed?
With our restaurants, especially, and the people that work at the restaurants, we've got to find a way to support those people that have lost funds. I know they've applied for unemployment, and there should be other money trickling down, but as a community, we need to find a way to support our restaurants. His Place, Heavenly Barbecue. There's a Buck's Barbecue on the east side as well. And we all eat out. We're still eating out, I think. I see a lot of people going to fast food restaurants. We've just got to find a way to get the word out to our people to continue to support those people that look like us, because we don't want to lose them during this pandemic and they never able to return.
It's a great point. I think one of the things that's been critical is I've seen some sharing of specific local businesses, Black and brown businesses, just trying to help people be more aware of that and make it a consideration. I think, part of Kheprw, we've decided once a week we're going to make sure if we eat out local. And I think if more people could do that, it could help empower some of those businesses to put money back into the pockets of those families and individuals you're speaking of.
And Chef, I didn't know you were still open because I drove by there and I'm like, it doesn't look like the trap is open. I'm glad to know that you'll reopen next week.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Because everybody that we talk to, I make these suggestions, try the places that belong to people that look like us.
Yes, ma'am.
I want you guys to stay around.
Thank you.
Miss Anita, could you talk about some of the impact the pandemic has had on your security business in specifics?
Oh, wow. We work at Pan Am Plaza. That's one of our contracts. And they do a lot of events. So they were the first ones to shut down. And we usually have 30 people there for the weekend. So that was a big hit for us. We are a subcontractor for Securitas. And that means we do several of the license branches around the city. License branches are closed. So we have taken our people, everybody that worked those contracts, we're trying to move them around, trying to share contracts. There are other areas that they can work. So we've taken some hours from some people and caused them to share with others just to keep them all working. Number one, we don't want to lose our people. And they need the money. So where some people were working 40 hours, we kind of had to cut them back and allow them to share with somebody else so that everybody continues to work.
Has that been challenging or a little bit easy, kind of say, to get your people to, I guess, be cooperative with each other's need for resources in such dire times?
Challenging. When you take hours for people, there is going to be some conversation, some feedback, some resistance. Mm-hmm. But we try to explain to them that it's to help everybody during this pandemic. And so they do it. And they they don't say too much. Now, what we have some resistance in is we work 2 construction contracts. They're still going, but there's a 30-day delay. And so on one contract we just started, 30 days is kind of common for construction.
Yeah.
But we've had one contract we started March 1st, and they haven't paid yet. And they won't pay until the end of April. So again, we're struggling with trying to keep payroll, to keep going.
Yeah, cash flow.
Yeah, so we were counting on the payroll loan that was supposed to come out today. But because of the change in the application process, or that is questionable, that doesn't come out today. We go to Lake City Bank and they said, we're gonna hold off, you can fill out the application, but there have been some changes in the requirements. So yeah, we're suffering a little bit. We're trying to be as flexible and ask our people to be as flexible as possible.
Yeah, I think that's the best you can do, especially because you're learning. We're all learning as we go, as more information comes out, and then trying to adjust as we find resources. But I think if you're able to get the people on your team to be as flexible and cooperative and understand that it's a collective burden we share, I think that assists in the long-term survival of the company. And also, I feel like it could positively impact the culture of the company post-pandemic.
Yes. And we have a lot of members in our chamber. And as we call them, we ask them what they need. Do you need someone to still be on the phone? Have you had to lay people off? And so we're offering assistance to make phone calls or whatever they need. so far from our insurance agents, we have a couple of people that own insurance agencies, they've not felt the heat yet. Mm. Now, we have had a chauffeur company who has felt the effects of the pandemic. All his customers have stopped traveling. He was doing a lot of airport runs. And so now he's not doing that. So again, we encouraged him to go after that loan because he's still got to make payments on his cars, payments to his drivers. And we told him to look for other avenues, different ways to make money, deliveries or other opportunities. So we're making suggestions while we're on the phone with people, and the more information we get, we share it with our members just so they can understand that this is a true collaboration at this time.
Yeah, you raised another point that I think is important, and if any of you have answers to it, please share at some point. But it's about once you access loans or grants or resources, then the next step is, all right, how do I prioritize what I spend this capital on, or how much of it do I spend, and how much of it do I, save? So how to strategize once you get that capital, because just getting it is one thing, but another thing is how do I effectively use it given the environment is so drastically changed. All right. Thank you, Miss Anita. Next, we'll go to Miss Emily Scott with Indianapolis LISC. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the work that Indianapolis LISC is doing currently.
Sure. So my name is Emily Scott, and I'm a program officer at LISC. And I work with a lot of our kind of economic development programming. So that includes our small business facade grant and some of the other work that we do to kind of support commercial corridor revitalization in different parts of the city. And over the last year with Forward Cities and some of the other kind of micro enterprise support organizations and work that's kind of been growing, I've been taking a larger role with some of that work with regard to LISC's participation in that. LISC is a national organization, so we have, the interesting perspective of kind of having counterparts in a lot of different markets and kind of seeing how things are going in different places and learning from people in other cities about how they're developing new programs or resources right now. And Anita mentioned the Verizon grant that we announced earlier this week. So at a national level, LISC developed a partnership with Verizon, and they made a $2.5 million grant available that is going out as $10,000 grants directly to entrepreneurs. And that application opened on the evening of March 31st and closes tomorrow night. And as of last night, there were already 11,000 applications. So the demand is incredible. And, we're going to be really excited for the businesses here in Indy that are, some are going to be recipients of that. So knowing that the competition is so steep, we're excited to see who gets those. But the interesting thing from like an organizational perspective for us is that we typically have not been able to give grants directly to small businesses in the past. We always work with nonprofits, and sometimes those nonprofits are an intermediary for small businesses. But we've had to innovate our process right now to be able to do these direct grants to small businesses. So, the COVID crisis and the need to get money out the door directly to small businesses is sort of a forcing incident that is causing our national organization to rethink our grant process a little bit. And so even though it's kind of been done in response to emergency, it's actually like helping us position ourselves to be more able to work with small businesses in the future in a way that we maybe haven't in the past because of just kind of administrative issues. So I think that's been really interesting just to see how it's sort of forcing us as a larger organization that is somewhat bureaucratic to try to be more nimble and to try to be a little bit more like easy to work with in certain ways. So I think that's really good and interesting, and I'm kind of excited to see how what comes of that. And so in addition to that, we have been trying to kind of ramp up our partnership with Kheprw, which is an international crowd lending platform. And that's through that lending platform, businesses can get loans of up to $15,000. And if they're sort of in the LISC network or referred by like a LISC partner, that the business who's applying for that loan can get like a match. So for every $25 or $50 that someone from the crowd lends that small business, LISC can put in a dollar for dollar match, which helps that borrower meet their loan goal faster. So we've been, we were sort of in like late February, early March, April, kind of planning to ramp up Kheprw anyways, and the timing was just actually really good. So there's already several small businesses, some of which I've actually met through you guys, that I know are working on that this week. And so just trying to help them troubleshoot and, you know, any questions and stuff. So yeah, those are some things that I've been kind of working on this week. And yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Do you feel that the pandemic has created more access to resources locally or nationally for LISC, or is it heightened the competition for resources in your field?
I think it's probably both. I don't know. So, you know, for instance, someone like Verizon, we've never received a grant from Verizon before. And, you know, but they wanted to look for like a philanthropic partner to help them deliver small business grants because they don't have that infrastructure. So there's sort of, you know, there's other sort of like large organizations potentially at like a national level who have not been traditional philanthropic partners for LISC in the past that now are kind of like, can we work with you to help make small business grants? Because like Verizon doesn't want to operate their own grant program, for instance. So I think that's been interesting. And again, that's happening like way above my head at like a national level, but so that's kind of my perspective. And then I feel like locally, you know, I think it's just encouraging, you know, for instance, we're looking at existing resources that we have that were maybe like, I don't know, a line item in a grant that was maybe for some type of like technology or something, or some type of, I don't know, maybe like non-essential thing, and trying to reprioritize that. So like, could we put that into a small business fund? Or so I think it's causing a lot of people who either work in philanthropy or close to philanthropy to kind of like revisit what resources are available and how to reposition some of those things.
Gotcha. And I'm sorry, I forgot that you had slides as a part of your presentation.
Oh, that's good.
So if you would like, if you have a digital link, we could send that out to the interested viewers as well.
Sure. Yeah, and I would actually just echo something that Anita said. You know, if you actually want to go up to the first slide in the presentation, excuse me, I just put together like a list of a couple things there that, you know, I think pursuing multiple grants, loans simultaneously, and resources at the same time is important, because there's a possibility you won't get funded at the full amount that you were hoping for. There's a possibility that the bank that you're working with or the funder that you're working with, you know, is going to be slow, or ultimately you're not going to be eligible. And if you wait until you find that out, you've already lost time. So I think it's good to kind of explore multiple resources at the same time. And, you know, most loans or grants are going to require some level of documentation, you know, whether that's your business ID, your nonprofit ID, your tax ID. And so, you know, making sure that you have that stuff ready and that you know where it's at, you have it saved digitally, that, you know, you read the like required documentation and things like that before starting a process, and not waiting until you get all the way through it to find out, oh crap, I don't have that one thing, when you've already, you know, spent some time on it. I think there's just important things to keep in mind, especially for businesses that maybe haven't applied for grants before, because we know that like with a lot of the SBA and the grant stuff, this is going to be the first time that a lot of small businesses are applying for something like this. So it's new. And so I think those are just like a few kind of suggestions that I've sort of been noticing, and I think it's important for folks to keep in mind.
Thank you. Is there any other resources that you think are needed?
Yeah, I mean, I think potentially a little bit on that front is, you know, with like the SBA Paycheck Protection Program and some of the other federal resources, they're going to be great resources, but they're probably not going to be super easy to navigate and super easy to apply for. So I think, you know, if there are people in the community or ways to help pay people to potentially be like basically like an application helper almost,
Yeah.
Or like if you've applied, like would you be willing to like lend your time to somebody who is wanting to apply to be like, oh, I already did that, like let me tell you how that experience worked for me. Because I think that like if the resource is if the application is intimidating, people are going to drag their feet on it. So I think finding those kind of like champions who like, oh, I did apply and like here were the things that were challenging for me, or I should have known beforehand to like help other people in the process. I think something like that could be important or helpful to some businesses anyways.
Yeah, absolutely agree, especially on the application process. If there was individuals or tutorials to help some of these people and businesses move through the application process and actually what a strong application looks like, I think would help a lot of people.
Now we do help as Black Chamber walk everyone through, anybody having a problem filling out the application. We help them walk through it. I'm going to meet a couple people today.
Great.
That's awesome.
And one thing I would be remiss if I failed to mention, if you all could just state, we could put it in the chat as well, the links, and it was probably in the invite as well, but we can just re-mention the links to your platform, your website, so that people can stay in contact with what you have going on. Okay, so once again, I'm Diop Adisa. I'm part of the Kheprw Institute as well as Scarabys Consulting. The first I will talk about some of what Kheprw is doing. We recently added 2 pieces to our online platform. One is called the Resource Bank. And the skinny of that is basically a centralized place on our website that will continue to put up resources as we find them. So there are a few different categories: small businesses, artists, jobs and unemployment, food access, housing, utilities, education. And then people can also submit resources. So if any of you come across something that you find extremely valuable that people need to know about, you can submit that resource on our webpage, and then we'll go through it and then republish it on our platform and to our followers. But just kind of some of the examples of what's on that resource page. The Verizon grant that Emily spoke about is on there, as well as the Small Business Relief Initiative $500 grant matching. The Indy Chamber and SBA business loans. So those are kind of like all under small businesses. And then some of the examples for artists is the Arts Council of Indianapolis has a $500 grant. So those things are populated on that page, and we're going to try to keep it fresh as new information comes, just so people can access it easily. And we think that's important in these times. And then another thing that we recently launched is called the LEAD grant. LEAD Support Fund. And LEAD, acronym for Local Entrepreneur and Artist Direct Support Fund. And basically what that is that based off of our crowdfunding abilities, we'll be providing $500 to artists and or entrepreneurs weekly. And we'll do a random lottery. So all people have to do is submit their information, and we'll pick them out. And I actually think we do have a winner today. So let me go over and see. All right. And if I butcher your name, I'm so sorry. It's not personal, you know what I mean? So I apologize. But the name is Corinne Serini. And the business is Corey the Barber. So congratulations, you won $500, and we'll reach out to you and get that to you, and hopefully it helps in some kind of way. So yeah, please spread the word about the lead support fund that Kheprw is building, and as long as we have funds and we're able to raise funds, we'll continue to do that. And then I'll just add a little bit about some of the things that we've been talking about and how to adjust to the pandemic. We've been looking at our strengths as an entity. What do we do best? And I think individuals and businesses should really hone in on what they do best, but then also, is that of necessity now? Should that be prioritized now? You may be able to do a lot of things, and some of those things you may not do the best, but some of the things you do are more important now. So kind of running through your priorities, running through your strengths, I think is critical. And then looking at, if your business has to run on a very lean diet, what can you pay and what can't you pay? And what are the consequences with deferring loans or skipping payments, just to kind of put yourself in different scenarios, whether you're there or not. But we don't know how long the impacts from this time period will be. So we think it's very important to try to place yourself in different scenarios so you can kind of have some sense of a game plan, even though it may be impossible to prepare for what we'll continue to face, not just this year, but the following years, because the economic impact will be felt for a while. There's anything else I want to share? Also, too, lean on your social capital, lean on your relationships to support you, but to support them as well, and just to check on each other. I think that's extremely important, and that's one thing we all have. We all have the ability to reach out and connect and provide our insight and just an ear. I think that goes a long way. I really don't talk too long for those that know me, so I'll leave it at that. I think next is to get into the question and answer period. And I believe the questions have been submitted through the chat, so let me bring that up. And let me see what we have here. I don't see any questions, so maybe a question to roll in. Is there anything else any of you all would like to add, or any questions or thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, or any important announcements you'd like to make?
I'll start with something. So I think that, right now there's a lot of emphasis on trying to figure out what these like short-term crisis resources are to respond to and adapt to like the very immediate emergent needs right now. But, Diop, your point about like, what's the economic outlook going to look like 6 months from now or like further out? So I think there's, I had a conversation with some folks at the city earlier this week, and, they're trying to figure out like some of the resources that the city has aren't necessarily going to be fast enough to be able to be really crucial, like maybe this month or next month, but like, how can they plan for like, well, let's say a business gets through the next, 2 or 3 months, like how can they help them reestablish on the back end or something? So I think there's, I think, it's important for funders and banks and businesses themselves, not just to think about like next week, but to think about 6 months from now and what like longer term recovery is going to look like. And I think probably that's hard for a lot of people who might be, just freaking out day to day, like, what am I going to do to get through tomorrow? But yeah.
All right, one question from Mimi Zakum. Do you see any opportunities in the crisis? And then I guess that's to the entire panel. And then Emily specific, can you compare and contrast the loan options available and how a business owner can determine which options are best for them? Any opportunities in the moment you all see?
I guess personally, as far as the opportunities are concerned, like I was saying, we started the trap at home model because we did roll out the trap. I was going to roll out the trap at home model anyway. It was already in my pocket. It was already coming. But since the crisis came down, I decided to go ahead and, you know, kind of streamline it and push it faster, or push it, you know, before I was going to anyway. But because I've been able to push it, I've had other offers, like I was saying earlier, for, you know, retailing. So that I'm grateful for that, because it's not, you know, that's going to be more business that we'll be able to do. And it also, if I may say so, it's also, when I brought mine, it's also inspired other businesses to also do a take and, you know, a take home type of deal also, or, you know, they call it, you know, Papa Murphy's does take and bake and, you know, all of that stuff. But I've seen several other businesses after I started mine come up with the same type of model. And so that's really cool to see that other people are able to shift, you know, in that same way, and still try to, in the restaurant business anyway, try to at least keep people fed and keep our employees working.
Yeah, that's a great point, how like innovation in these times impact one, new opportunity, but then also provide new ways for other people to create opportunity that they didn't see as either viable or didn't even know to package a, you know, a plan that way. So I think innovation is critical, and that's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can flow into the compare and contrast loan question.
Well, I can talk a little bit about the opportunities that we've seen for the chamber. It's been great. Other people have time now to talk to other businesses. The people that have been trying to introduce and say, you know, perhaps you can work together, and everyone have been very busy, that now we are able to put partnerships on the back burner. We're able to talk about up front now. We're able to sit down and work out a plan. Everybody's got just a little bit more time. So it has created greater opportunity for the businesses.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've been getting real acquainted with Zoom lately, more so in my entire life.
So. Yeah, so if I can go ahead and give you a little bit of a comparison on some of the lending stuff. And and I can send, one of my coworkers put together sort of like a little comparison spreadsheet, and I can send that to you guys after we get done. This only includes like 4, well, I guess there's like 5 loans, but it's like Kheprw, the Indy Chambers loan, the Quick Bridge from Bankable, and the Paycheck Protection Program. So Kheprw is 0% interest, 0 fee, up to 36 months, no minimum credit score required, and the business needs to be some type of registered entity. Kheprw is probably going to be really good, or a better option for a business that's very early stage, like just maybe a couple years, and has existed only for a couple years. The one thing with that is, since it's a crowd-funded loan, so like these are lots of small loans from people in your network and people in the broader community, that it does take some time to like get all those little loans to build up to the amount that you actually want to borrow. So I think it's good for a business that has like a good social media presence that can help kind of promote that. So the Indy Chamber rapid response loan is between $1,000 and $25,000. It's 3.75% interest, no closing fees. They wanted to make sure that their interest rate was in line with what the SBA was doing. The term is 0 to 36 months. Also no minimum credit score. kind of the standard SBA disaster loans are 0 to 2 million, and the interest rate ranges between 2.75 and 3.75, I think. They go out to 30 years. There is going to be a minimum credit score required. It's probably a better fit for, you know, slightly larger businesses, or that maybe have a little bit more like higher level of operations or more employees. The Quick Bridge loan from Bankable is between $500 and $50,000. It's at 8%, no closing fees, up to 36 months. And the good thing about that one is it's a very quick turnaround time. So, you know, in some cases, interest rates on these vary a little bit. And, you know, with Kiva, there's zero interest, but it's kind of a different structure because you're getting lots of loans from multiple people. The SBA product loans are lower interest, but the approval process, because it's a government program, and ultimately it's taxpayer dollars that are funding these loans, there's a lot more requirements, and it's, you know, the approval process will take longer. Bankable, on the other hand, the interest rate's higher, but if you need the money really fast, it might be faster. But it's still going to be cheaper than putting it on your credit card. And finally, on the Paycheck Protection Program, which is kind of the newest one from the SBA, that's up to 10 million, or 2.5 times the average payroll for a company. And it's at 4%. And the nice thing about the Paycheck Protection Program is if a business is able to keep their employees, and I'm fairly sure this is right, but I'm still learning, if they're able to keep their employees' pay on the payroll through June 30th, then a portion of that loan actually gets turned into a forgivable grant. So, so that's good for businesses who, if they actually can keep their employees paid through this loan, then some of the loan actually gets written off and gets turned into a grant that the business doesn't have to pay back. So that's going to be really good for employers that have a decent amount of employees. So that's like a high level comparison.
Thank you.
Hey, Diop, can I speak to my experience in applying for some of these loans?
Absolutely.
Bankable to start with, because we had such a lag in the construction industry, we went to Bankable about 10 days ago to apply for a loan. We got all of the paperwork in, and so as of today, they're telling us they're not ready to give us the loan because on the application we did say that we were going to apply for an SBA loan. And so they mentioned that the payroll protection program is going to start today. Because of that, they will not push our loan any further until they see if we get the payroll protection program loan. Now that one is on hold right now. So Bankable has our application on hold. So we thought Bankable would be a quick turnaround, but it has not been for us.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I think with, you know, as the banks have sort of, and lenders have maybe their own internal products or internal loan programs, and then they're now trying to figure out how to work with what the SBA is doing. I'm sure it's probably complicated things a little bit, but it's not any easier for the borrower. So,
right.
But yeah, that's good to know that the experience, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, that was a little frustrating today, but I'm sure there will be a lot of frustration in all of this.
Yeah, and I just want to state this for anyone watching, that once again, the Verizon one is a grant, so definitely apply for that one, right? Apply for the things that you don't have to pay back. You know what I mean? If you don't do anything, definitely try to get that. All right, I have another question here. It says, what stories of resilience give you inspiration now? It's a good question. I see something boiling up.
Well, Chef Oya, you have given us great stories of resistance and bouncing back in this. So your story has been very encouraging.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
I appreciate that. I have a lot of community support, and I'm not able to run my business without it. So I'm really grateful that I have a great product, a consistent product, and something that people love, and they, make sure that they tell all of their friends and stuff too. So I'm grateful for that. One thing that has been a little bit frustrating too is that I started another business, and it's not a food-based business. It's a cosmetics business, and my launch for the cosmetics business was going to be on April the 20th. So I have all of the products. I had to stop. I had to cancel the photo shoots for the products, so we have to figure out a different way to do that. I'm probably going to have to end up just taking the pictures and putting them on our e-commerce sites and our website and everything on my own, and then we'll do something fancy later when I am able to hire an actual photographer and we don't have to worry about social distancing. But I'm still gonna try to go with my 420 launch date, and hopefully it'll still do what it's supposed to do. I don't know. But thank you. I appreciate that. I have personally, because I do have such good relationships with other restaurant owners and food-based business owners here in the city. I've been able to see a lot of them, if they haven't closed completely, then they've been able to pivot in a certain way to keep their doors open and all of that stuff. So I just see resilience and inspiration all around me, and I'm real grateful to see that, because people, I mean, we can't just stop what we're doing. We can't just give up. We can stay in the house, but we can't just give up.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Mhm.
Sorry, got knocked off, but demonstrated some resilience, and I'm back. All right. I believe we have one more question. Well, actually, I can no longer show. Oh, yeah, I can see him now. And I can't see him. Can any of you see the questions? For some reason, I can't bring it up in my chat anymore.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so it said that, does Chef Oya use web, online, digital promotions? Any thoughts from all on pivoting to online?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I have a current website where we take all of our, well, I have a product called Trap Butter, which is like the meat and potatoes of the trap. Anyway, it's our sauce. It's what makes us popular. Anybody can sell seafood, but nobody else has our sauce. So we sold those online anyway. Sales on the Trap Butter has gone up. Nobody's able to leave their house, so this is something that people are able to get in the mail, so long as the post office stays open. And I read an article the other day about that being in danger. So we've been able to pivot that, and then I take all of my pre-orders online to do for the Trap at Home meals too. I have a really good engagement on both Facebook and Instagram for the business pages too. So fortunately, we're able to still kind of roll out.
Gotcha. Here's another one. Have you found any practices that businesses in the same industry can collaborate to help each other get through this crisis?
I guess I'll, talk again. When I was saying a little earlier that, a lot of other businesses kind of shifted and pivoted to the the take home model as well. I do some business consultation for restaurants that are starting and restaurants that need kind of help building their social media platforms and stuff like that as well. So what I've been able to do just on a personal front to help other people is just not send people an invoice when they ask me questions and kind of help them, figure out exactly how they want to do their take home model meals and all of that stuff. So, I mean, I guess that's just my own little part and my own little way to help people pivot and figure out how to do something a little differently in my industry.
Sure.
And I've gotten some great ideas from other restaurant owners and chefs as well too. So it's definitely been something that we've been supporting each other on.
Have you all seen any collaboration in the security industry or the I don't even know how to describe LISC's industry. The LISC industry.
One thing that it's not really like something that we've taken like a role in our industry, but just like a connection we facilitated. So if you guys are familiar with Pattern, the kind of fashion magazine, and they kind of work with a lot of like local fashion makers and clothing designers and stuff. They this month were planning to open like a cut and sew industrial sewing space in Circle City Industrial Complex, and LISC was able to make a connection between Eskenazi Hospital and Pattern to actually make hospital gowns like for folks at Eskenazi. So even today, they now have like a contract to produce gowns for Eskenazi. So I know a lot of people are like making masks at home and stuff, but Eskenazi was already like going to get another big shipment of masks, but like the gowns were something that they also needed. And so now I think Pattern is like hiring seamstresses and paying them to produce gowns during this thing right now. So that was something like Pattern was already wanting to launch this like cut and sew industrial sewing studio or whatever. And so, but now they have like a paid contract to actually like deliver on some of this that's helping them maybe ramp up quicker than they would have otherwise. So I thought that was a really cool thing to see. And, and we were able to help kind of make that connection.
As far as collaboration in security, we haven't seen a lot of collaboration because things have just died down. And as I said earlier, as we've seen some of our clientele die down, we've been able to just share hours or, stretch hours out so that everybody can stay employed. As far as the chamber, though, we're also a part of the U.S. Black Chamber. So we're on a call every week to see nationally what they're doing. And everyone is so eager for information that being part of the call, 800 people tried to get on the call yesterday.
Wow.
Was more than they had ever tried to handle. And it too many technical difficulties. It was amazing. All you could hear was the incoming call, when the new person comes in for 40 minutes. So there are a lot of challenges that we now have to try to address. So that was just an interesting technical challenge that they had yesterday.
I have another question specifically for Emily. It says, can you think of any other corporate entities who might want to support small businesses through grants or recovery funds?
So, I mean, I know that like I've seen a few things from like Facebook and Yelp and some of those that are really that like do marketing that are providing or that are like, social media marketing that are providing like free advertising for businesses right now. Because I think that's a way that they can provide us a free service or, extend their, but I mean, I think there are a lot of large corporations that ultimately, like when they look at their supply chain, in some ways it might be contingent on smaller businesses. And so I assume there are lots of companies that are looking at this right now. I think we're working on stuff locally and nationally, and you know, even though the Verizon fund was one thing, and you know, the demand was insane, and it's going to be, you know, incredibly competitive, but it's a grant, and so everybody wants it. I know some of our people at the national level are having a conversation with Walmart right now to do something very similar. So I think we'll be able to extend that opportunity. You know, I'm sure that some companies and corporations will launch those types of or grant programs themselves, but some of them don't necessarily, you know, have a grant making entity in place already. So they might partner with foundations or groups like LISC to help with that in some cases. So, I mean, I think the challenge is that like everybody needs help now, or a lot of people need help now. And so I think some, you know, some people are kind of getting impatient or just like nervous that there isn't more coming. But I feel like there's a lot of, I don't say innovation, but just like partnerships and collaborations going on behind the scenes at some of these larger companies and stuff. And I think within the next few weeks, I feel confident that there'll probably be a lot of new resources that exist out there. So just keeping an eye out for it is important.
Thank you. Well, I don't see any more questions, so I guess the last thing I ask, is there any final remarks that you all would like to leave us with before we can conclude today? And thank you once again as well.
I just want to say, come and eat. We start back taking pre-orders for our Trap at Home meals from on Tuesday, April the 7th. We're going to take those until April the 9th. Everything is done pre-order online ahead of time. You'll be able to see our menu. We're going to drop the menu on Tuesday at noon, and then the pickup for the pre-orders will be on Friday from noon until 6 p.m. So you can hit us up on our social media. On Facebook, you can look up Chef Oya's The Trap. On Instagram, you can look up The Trap Seafood, also chef_Oya. And then you can go to our websites at chefoya.com and trapbutter.com. Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
You.
It's been very informative. Thank you for all of your information.
Diop, I too want to thank you for having us and pulling everyone together. And it's important that we continue to say we're all in this together. Everyone on television has said it. And although we hear it, I don't think we're acting on it. We have to encourage people. Don't be afraid to ask for help or talk about what you need, because we're all needing the same things. So every time I get on the phone, I ask people, what do you need? And don't be ashamed to say it. Maybe I can find the person to help you get through this, or maybe I have the words to encourage you through all of this. So it's just important that we tell people, you know, just stay in contact. Although we're isolated at home, we're not really isolated. We're all doing this. We're all experiencing the same thing. Loss of economics, loss of people. You know, each one of us have known people to suffer through this, to pass away because of this virus. So there's a lot of hurt out there. And we're all here to share a good word, to be encouragement, to let people know that we're going to make it through this. And we're going to do it together. So it's the same rhetoric, but we need to keep saying it. Thank you, Diop.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you giving us the chance to get together today and share some information. And yeah, I think it's awesome just to hear, you know, stories of businesses like The Trap that are innovating and right now and like still succeeding. And I think, you know, hopefully a lot of organizations and businesses will, you know, we know that some will fail and some won't make it through, but hopefully the ones that make it out will be stronger and more innovative and have, you know, more diverse, you know, processes and things in place to like position them for success moving forward. So hopefully that's like a, I don't know, a beacon of hope that, you know, like struggle makes you stronger, whatever. So it'll be good.
Got you. Well, I want to say thank y'all and thank Kheprw team because they did most of the work. So I appreciate all of y'all. And I guess I'll just leave with stay positive and stay creative. We can definitely create some memorable moments as well as approaches that'll help us sustain beyond this moment. So enjoy the rest of your Friday. Happy birthday again. Turn up.